Point65 is a project I've been excited about for some time now, and we're finally bringing you our formal review after numerous builds on our Twitch streams. Feel free to use the chapters to navigate to the bits that matter most to you, and a huge thanks to mechanicalkeyboards.com for sending this over for us to take a look at today. For transparency, I am allowed to keep this board, but no money changed hands, all opinions remain my own, and no one has been privy to this content prior to upload. I am also an affiliate with mechanicalkeyboards.com, so any of our affiliate links do provide a small kickback that helps us continue to make awesome content here. The board ships in its own well-made case with everything needed to build the board, sans your own stabilizers, keycaps, and switches. In the case of our sample, we had the standard RGB PCB as well as the optional multi-layout PCB, and were later sent the optional polycarbonate plate. The board comes stock with an aluminum non-flex cut plate, and both are compatible with plate leaf spring gasket mount and top mount. I also want to quickly point out that the RGB PCB is brighter than your future. A nice touch on both PCBs is labeling what sockets to use with which spacebar size or caps lock type. I now want to see more of this on more boards. Also included are 3 sets of feet, 3 different gasket durometers, a foam kit, and an S1.1 unified daughter board that uses EasyMate Molex cables, of which 2 are supplied. While there's 2 cables provided in the event you experience an issue with your EasyMate connectors, I am happy to report that the terminal ends on these cables are quite robust. As a total package, this is fairly comprehensive, though I have to confess to wanting to see a set of force brake pads included, which we'll discuss more later. Our example in baby blue has an excellent even finish between the 2 case halves, and the case design language is a sort of low-profile block-on wedge, with the wedge featuring filleted corners at the rear of the board with dramatic taper, giving the board a handsome side profile. There is a seam present, but with the anodization and color matching being this clean, and the seam almost perfectly bisecting the box region, it sort of becomes the board to me, so I'm okay with it, but your mileage may vary. Probably the most divisive aspect of this visually is the clear-coated brass weight on the underside covering a massive swath of the board and featuring one of only 2 spots where the Point65 logo is present, the other being just above the hooded USB-C cutout. Unfortunately, there aren't any other options for the look or material of the weight, so if you don't like the look of brass, this project might not appeal to you. The weight is 3mm at the thinnest point and 4mm at the thickest, and while it doesn't pass through to the interior of the case, it does plenty of work to make the board sound quite dense. Building the case is simple enough that I was able to figure it out on stream with little effort or imagination, though since then, MK has uploaded a nice assembly guide on YouTube, which I have linked in the video description, and they also have present on the product splash page. One thing to note is that while this is a screwless design, you don't have to remove switches to get to the fasteners that hold the case together, as they've recessed the openings deep enough that you can navigate the fastener around the switch housings. I also observed during our first build that they are secured much too tight from the factory. I think I'd like to see torque reduced ever so slightly, such that the parts still say assembled during transit, but they aren't so hard for the end user to remove. Another thing to note is the configuration and direction of the gaskets, as this matters. Not only do you get 3 different durometers of gaskets, 30A, 50A, and 70A, you can further tune their feel by placing the connecting strip either on the top of the plate for the softest feel, or underneath for the stiffest feel, providing tremendous tunability of the feel of this board, though your mileage may vary as to whether or not this is something you notice all that much. You should expect to need to force break the keyboard for certain parts configurations. What you're currently seeing is my recommended locations for applying a force break to the board using double-stacked 3M felt medical tape. I think I'd like to see an addition of a pre-cut force break pack in the event the board needs it, as when building with the Gateron cream sodas, the board didn't seem to need it, but when using Jaywick Blacks, it most certainly did. I ended up doing several builds with this board, but rather than assail you with all of the type tests, instead, I'll demo my personal favorite configurations for each mounting style. Comment below which type was your favorite. One thing I'll say about the polycarbonate plate build is when using the plate in top mount and forcing the edges of the build down, you can get some undue flex in the assembly due to the softness of the plate. But in practical use, this isn't something that'll impact the overall typing experience, as the force required to get that to happen is heavy enough. I just really can't see anyone having issues outside of those who are remarkably heavy-handed in typing. I suspect this may be happening due to the mounting points for top mount being located directly in the center of the gasket mount locations and not having any anchoring near the edge of the plate. I also tested the polycarb plate with the 30A gaskets in the softest configuration. This provided so much supple assembly compression as to be among the most actually comfortable setups for this board. However, at the far right edge, it is possible, again with force that won't typically happen during normal typing, to get the assembly to bottom out. I think I'd like to see something like what LumenKey provides come with the polycarbonate plate at least. A supremely thin anti-static layer just to lay on the inside as a precaution to avoid your PCB shorting out on the case and not needing to use the full case foam to build the board. Even with the lowest gasket durometer, this shouldn't reasonably happen with the aluminum plate. When setting up the board through VIA or Vial, be sure to download the resource pack MK has on their product listing so you have all the proper firmware and JSON files present to get the board recognized. One interesting thing to note that I haven't come across with other boards with RGB lighting. For any of the rainbow lighting effects, setting the brightness too low will result in the board only being able to display red, green, and blue with no color blending being present. It should, however, be noted that I am currently testing this board on a custom-made YC8 cable, so further testing might be warranted here, but I suspect this is just a quirk of the board's power delivery. Another thing I noticed as I was typing this content piece: as a result of employing a force break mod to the board, there is a touch of light bleed around the perimeter of the keyboard with the RGB turned on, though in use this isn't something you're likely to notice. I only noticed it because I picked up the board and looked at the sides directly. The most ready comparison at this price point would be mode Envoy, with an identical starting MSRP. We'll cover that comparison in more detail in a dedicated video, as it's not exactly a clear choice as to which one you should add to your collection. But I can qualify that you'd be extremely happy either way. And really, nowadays, that's a good place to be, with your first in-stock custom being considered a peer to a mode designs project. The .65 is certainly not perfect, though to be clear, there will likely never be a perfect keyboard that rolls through here, as so much of this hobby is subject to personal preference and things like unique niche fandoms. But what it did get subjectively wrong is easily addressed with slight revisions here and there, like maybe providing pre-cut force brake pads and an anti-static sheet for use with the polycarbonate plate. I can't even really argue that wireless would have been the move with this board, as that would have massively complicated the design of the internals, and really, how much do you feel like carrying around a nearly 4-pound board as part of your everyday carry? I feel this board does everything needed to succeed today. Provide a top-tier, in-stock, approachable project for newcomers and veterans alike to find something they enjoy, with excellent build quality and well-implemented mounting styles that all represent a broad range of personal preference in this hobby. Take care of yourselves and one another, and we'll see you all in the next video.